Hey everybody, this is Russ from Retro Game Core. We're going to do something totally different today. We're going to record all of my top-down footage that I usually will do for like my reviews and testing at the same time as I do my voiceover and my face. I've never done a two-camera setup like this before. I'm a little bit nervous, but I think we'll be able to pull it off. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to review a bunch of things at once, and I mostly want to capture my own first impressions with it, and so I think it just makes a lot of sense to kind of throw it all together in one. Now, the cool thing is no one's really seen this room before, other than like the green matte footage, obviously. And so I do want to use this room more often, I just haven't gotten there yet. So I do want to put like, shelves up here and some games and handhelds and stuff. I want to get a better mount for my phone so I can have better camera footage. And then also, you've got things like this black bowl right here. This is holding up a huge black sheet up here on the top, which I use to reduce any sort of reflections here on the images when I'm like playing a handheld. And so that's why I have all this set up like this. It's not perfectly presentable, but I think it'll be good enough for this video here. So let's talk about the video, which is going to be a review of a bunch of different cases and grips for the Steam Deck. Primarily, I use the KillSwitch grip. I've used this thing for, I don't know, a year and a half at this point. I love it. Like, I've changed out the skin so many different times. It's so comfortable to use. It protects the Steam Deck. But there are a couple of reasons why I think that there might be better options out there. The first is that this is my first love. And if you've had your first love, then you know that that may not be the person that you eventually marry. It runs really hot and fast at first, but then, you kind of figure out who you are and who they are, and maybe it's not a great match. So I am looking to see whether or not this is my first love or if it's my one and only true love as well. So we're going to do that here in this video. We'll talk a little bit about why I like this so much as well. Now, over the past year or so, I've gotten a ton of these things sent over to me. And so we're going to take all of those that have been sent. Some of them I didn't even ask for. They just kind of showed up at my door. And we're going to see whether or not those will stack up, both in terms of like features and then looks as well as price. So we're going to kind of take a look at all of those things at once to see if we can dethrone this little guy. Now, the other reason why I'm kind of interested in replacing my KillSwitch is because I'm not a huge fan of dbrand as a company. I like all their products, but I do not like their marketing. I think they're a little bit overly mean, and then also like they just like to take people down on Twitter, and that all blew up in their face last month, and I think it's deservedly so because they can be jerks online. I understand that they're trying to be edgy or whatever, and that's their thing, but I also think that you can be kind and run a company at the same time. And so I also have an ulterior motive of trying to get a better case for this because it would be pretty awesome to get something that feels good and maybe improves upon the whole dbrand thing, and then also is a company that's a little bit nicer to their customers. And so that's what I'm looking for here. Now, I'm not to the point where I'm gonna like ban all the dbrand stuff. They've tried to work with me before and I've just said, no, don't worry about it. I'll buy my stuff because I didn't want to have a partnership with them. But that's basically the extent of it. Like, I'm not going to boycott their products because I think they still make good stuff. It's just a little bit cringy when I have to go to their website and navigate through all that weird marketing material just to be able to pick up a case. It's just kind of weird. Anyway, that's why I think this will be a pretty cool live video, because I want to get my first impressions of these things as I hold them and then how they stack up against the KillSwitch. So there'll be a little bit of editing here just to make sure I don't have like a bunch of mistakes, and I'm sure I'll make a ton of them. But I think it'll also be fun, kind of letting our hair down. And so, without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. By the way, I'm too far away to actually push the buttons, so I'm just going to pretend. Boop. Okay, let's start by talking about why I like the Project KillSwitch from dbrand so much. The first is that it's got some really nice materials to it. This thing is a year and a half old, so it's kind of beat up. But as you can see, it's got some nice grips to it. You got like different kind of textures here, which feel really good in the hand. But then the overall texture is also a little bit grippy, like sandpapery, and I've always really liked that. Now, the other part I like is that you can integrate skins with it. So they sell these skins that just go right here. And so you put this on top and you can change out these skins. And it's about $15 for new skin. So I have bought, I don't know, a half dozen skins over the past year and a half, and I've changed them out over time. And so I've really enjoyed that process as well, because it does breathe a little bit of new life into the Steam Deck, as opposed to having a case that's just like full on black or whatever it happens to be. Now, this case on its own is like $60, $65, and it comes with the KillSwitch case itself, which just fits right on top, and then also your choice of skin, and then also a kickstand. Let me grab that. So you have a kickstand that you can put on here as well. You've got this little thing that you kind of attach it to. I rarely use this, but there you go. So you can set that up, and then you've got a kickstand if you wanted to be able to play this like that. Personally, I don't really use a kickstand that much, just because I don't know, I don't really feel a need for it, but if you wanted to play this tabletop, you could totally do that. And then it also has 4 slots for micro SD cards if you had extra. Again, I've never really done that. I've just kind of keep like a 1 TB card within here for all my emulation. And then I put all my games directly onto the hard drive. And so that's basically how I play my Steam Deck. The other part is that you can buy what they call the travel kit. That's going to be another like $15. That will come with this thing. And so this is like a little case. And so you can put this on here and then you flip it over like that. And now you've got like a full-on case for your Steam Deck. It's pretty cool because it doesn't add a lot of extra space to it, but it works pretty well. It's got even a spot, you know, you can charge it at the same time. Now, one thing worth noting that I don't like about this is that these 3 dots right here will prevent you from using the official dock. And so what you have to do is buy an adapter kit from dbrand for another $8. So that's not super cool, but you can just put that adapter on the dock and then you can just plop it on after that. So no big deal. It's just an additional $8 and something that I'd rather not have to pay. But otherwise, I really love this grip. I use it all the time. And also I love the fact that it covers all the spots that I actually put my hands. And so it just feels nice and universal as I'm holding it. It's a rare case where you can get a grip like this, where it enhances everything without taking away from it. Because as we'll probably see with these other ones, it's going to have a few setbacks. And this one has really gotten so many things right that it hasn't compelled me that much to be able to change to a different one. So anyway, yeah, that's the grip. It's going to be $60 if you want the skin and the case as well as the kickstand. And then if you want to get that covering, it's going to be an additional $15. It also comes with like some stick covers as well. I've never really liked those, so I don't really use them. Now for all my comparisons, I'm not going to use this Steam Deck with those cases. That's mostly because I want to keep this one handy so I can switch between the two. And then also I feel like scientifically I would need to take the skin off and I don't want to do that. And so we're going to keep this one as it is and then use a different Steam Deck for the grips and cases and all that stuff. So this one is my original 512 LCD model. I've had this thing since basically day one, and I actually auctioned it off last month to somebody for charity. And it turns out that when they got it, the screen was no longer working. We're still not sure what's going on with that. We've done a bunch of troubleshooting, but I told them just send it back to me and I'll figure out what to do. This is the old busted Steam Deck that I've had forever at this point. The video out still works, so I'm able to plug it into a TV. And so a lot of troubleshooting that we're going to do with this one. But as it stands, it's going to work just fine when it comes to comparing different grips and cases. So we're going to do the grips first. We're going to start with this one. This is from a company called Spigen. You probably heard about them. They're a Korean company. They make a lot of like phone cases and screen protectors, things like that. So I'm familiar with the brand, but I've never actually used them for anything gaming related. Anyway, this one is called the Rugged Armor case. This one has a rubber like kind of feel to it, a lot more bendy than the Steam Deck grip one from dbrand. And so already it feels just a little bit looser in the hand. But yeah, it looks kind of nice. It has a more matte texture to it altogether. And then you can see it has a little part for the vent. And then also a little bit of this carbon fiber stuff if you want to treat it like a race car or whatever. Otherwise, it does have a little bit of a different texture here on the edge. It's just a little bit more grippy. Again, it's kind of like the original Steam Deck feel of the case, not necessarily something really grippy like from dbrand. Anyway, yeah, we got a lot of holes here, like places for the buttons and the vents and your triggers and all that. But it seems to be pretty solid. It also comes with this little lanyard thing. I'm not sure if a Steam Deck is something you'd want to put on a lanyard, but you could definitely do that with this. It's got a little push button here so you can make it smaller or bigger. I don't think I would ever use this. Anyway, let's try it out with the Steam Deck. And so putting it in here, I don't know. I don't have any of these instructions. I actually got rid of all my cases for most of these, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. The thing is, I actually filmed a bunch of footage with each of these cases like 6 months ago, like around Christmas time. And so I'm kind of redoing some of that footage because I kind of forgot what the experience was like when I first did it. Now, in terms of holding it in the hands, it feels pretty good. Like here with the grips, it definitely feels, at least in terms of pushing these buttons and the triggers, it feels pretty solid. My main hesitance right here in the beginning is that we have quite a lip here between the grip and the deck itself, and you can feel that lip. And if you look with the KillSwitch case, they've got something that kind of covers all that part up. It makes it a pain in the butt to actually get on, but the fact that we have this makes it a lot easier to use because you're just going to have all of your palm against it, and you never really feel that lip. It's got a lip there, but it's not something you would ever actually notice. Meanwhile, with this one, it's like a constant reminder that you are touching a grip. And so I'm not a huge fan of that idea, but I like the fact that it's pretty easy to access these buttons. Everything feels good in terms of this. It's $25 and it's going to protect, you know, like the sides of the Steam Deck. It's going to protect the top and the back. But yes, this lip right here, I totally do not prefer this over the dbrand one. So this does feel like a step down. Obviously, it's half the price, and so no big deal there, but all the same, Yeah, if I had it, I probably would be like, oh yeah, I've got a grip for my thing, but it doesn't elevate it like the way that the grip does on the KillSwitch. And so this one already, $25, is not going to pass the muster for me. Now, before we lose hope about Spigen, they did send me a second one. This one is called the Thin Fit Pro. This one has a hard plastic all along here. So that's hard plastic, but then the sides are rubberized. It also has its own kickstand. And so this one's $5 more. It's $30. It does not come with the little lanyard thing either. Anyway, let's take this one out and then try that next. Okay, now let's try to install the new one. And so putting this on was pretty easy. It actually just kind of snaps into place because of that hard plastic. So no complaints when it comes to the installation. However, right off the bat, you can probably see it too. It has the same lip as the other one. And so exact same experience when you're holding it. It actually doesn't have like a covering right here in terms of the corners for the bumpers. And that actually makes me feel like it's less protected. Like if it fell and it hit one of these sides, it wouldn't be as protected as the other grip case. And so I don't really see this one even being better than the $25 one in the sense that it has the same lip and it feels a little bit less protected. Now it does have that kickstand, and again, I'm not a huge fan of kickstands, but it works. It doesn't go back very much. Like this is as far as it goes. And as you can see right here, that's not a lot of angle. You know, it's enough to be able to kind of hold it like this. But one of the things I like about some of these grips is to be able to push it even further, like down here. I have the Deckmate, which is an additional accessory specifically made for like using a kickstand. That one will go super far down. And I like that idea of having it resting right here and then also a comfortable position while playing while sitting up. And so this one will not do that. It's more like a tabletop solution. It's not a bad angle, but it's just not my preferred one. Yeah, not a fan of this one. I don't think that this would be like my number one pick at all. It's 30 bucks, so no complaints there in terms of the price. I think it's pretty reasonable, but I don't like that it doesn't cover up here at the top and then that lip also. And so, yeah, this is going to be a pass for me. Also, getting this thing off is kind of a pain because it's hard plastic. I don't want to scratch the Steam Deck, and so I got to be pretty careful about it. Get my fingernail underneath. Yeah, this is not easy. There we go. Okay, so I got it off, but that was more work than it should have been. So not a huge fan of this one either. This is probably my least favorite between the two from Spigen. Okay, next I've got this one from tomtoc. This is called the Armor Case 05. Now I actually tried to find this on Amazon. I don't know when they sent this to me. It must have been months ago. I can't find it on Amazon. It's on their website. They call it the Fancy Case A05. So I was able to find it and it's 20 bucks. So it's not very expensive at all. And so, yeah, this is just looks like a case with a kickstand. And so let's unbox it and figure it out. And I got to say, I am a big fan of tomtoc, but not necessarily their grips. I've never used a grip from them before, but I've used a lot of their cases. We'll do that when we talk about the case part. Now, yeah, this is kind of... All right, so I don't really like this diamond branding here. It's a little bit too angular, and it almost looks like this is like a... bottle cap opener, you know, like for beer or whatever. If it doubled as that, that would be pretty awesome. I'm not really sure. I don't have a beer on me, but that would be totally worth investigating. Either way, it's got a kickstand that goes up a little bit more than the other one we were just looking at, but not by much. And it also has a neat little kind of holder there. So you kind of push this up and then so it's like it grips it into place so that it doesn't like flap around. This is made out of metal too. It actually feels pretty premium and hefty, just in terms of like having a metal accessory to it. It also has a little bit of a cheap feeling because of this little button right here. This isn't something that I would consider to be like a luxurious experience, but it definitely works. And this is all hard plastic and everything else is rubberized. So very similar to the other one we were just looking at, kind of has a matte feel to it. And then the sides here have a more grippy and glossy texture to them. Also carbon fiber, if you want to like pretend this is a race car or whatever. It feels okay. It's a little bit grippier than shiny. Like you would think it's going to be like glossy and grippy, but it's not. It actually has a matte feel to it, even though it is glossy looking, which is kind of interesting. The other thing I'm noticing is that around all of the matte parts, it has a shiny kind of layer to it. So it makes it look, I don't know, a little bit like eccentric or fancy. Definitely very tech and like computery, which again, is not really something I'm totally into. So it's a little bit weird. Another thing that's interesting is that the buttons themselves have little rubber pads on it. So I'm not sure if this is going to make it easier or worse to actually use the volume and power button. So we'll test that out here in a minute. But let's just go ahead and install it. Okay, getting it installed was pretty easy because it is rubberized, so it just kind of slips around. So it's actually easier to get on than like the KillSwitch case. It actually feels pretty good in the hands, more than I thought it would be. The rubber here is got this weird mix of both matte and also kind of grippy. And so I don't really mind it. It feels a little bit cheap, if I was to be honest, just the texture of the rubber. It also worries me that over time, especially here in Hawaii where it's humid, like it might get a little bit sticky over time. So I'm not really sure about that. Obviously, this isn't a long-term review, but all the same, the initial impressions is it feels pretty good, at least in terms of texture, and it's easy to access all of the buttons, no problem. This one has a lip too, and as you can see, it's very similar to the one from Spigen. I can still feel the lip here with like the palm of my hands. It's not a deal breaker like with the other one because the lip is actually smaller, and so I don't really mind it as much. And also it feels like it comes up a little bit more than the one from Spigen, and so it only barely touches right here, which is like this part of my hand right there. And so I don't really mind that. It's actually pretty good. So honestly, just in terms of feel, I would say this one is actually very good in that the lip doesn't bother me that much. The grip actually feels pretty good. It's $20, so I really can't complain about the like feel of it being premium or not. It's a third of the price of the KillSwitch one. It also has that kickstand on it. Let's test that out. Yeah, it actually goes far back pretty well. Not as far back as I would really like, but it is good. Like it's a good, comfortable angle. I would like it to go maybe 5 degrees more. Not much, but just a little bit more. But it's very, very close to my ideal setup. And of course, you could also use it at a higher angle if you wanted to play it with tabletop with like somebody else. So I think this is actually a pretty good match right here, all things considered. Now, in terms of pressing the volume buttons and whatnot, it's actually pretty good, but I honestly think I would rather not have them there because I like the feel of the volume up and down buttons. The fact that I can kind of feel the little circles and then push on them when I'm using the regular Steam Deck. With them covered like this, I feel like in the heat of the moment, I'm trying to push up and down the volume. It's going to be hard to see where it is. I'll have to actually angle it towards me, then see them and then press down on them. So it's an extra step. Not a huge fan of that. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good. Same thing with the power button. It's obviously something you won't press very often, but all the same, yeah, it's definitely pressable. And so I really don't have any complaints about it other than the fact that it kind of hides the location of the buttons by being flush with the rest of the case. I should also note that all the grips that we've tested so far do not cover the micro SD card slot, which is great. And, you know, up top here, another thing I like about this one is that it has just this fully exposed right here with the USB-C port, which means that you won't have to use an adapter or anything if you're trying to use it like with the official Valve dock. With the KillSwitch grip, it actually comes, like when you get the adapter, it comes with an extender to make it work properly. This one wouldn't need that, which is pretty great. So yeah, overall, I'm pretty positive about this one. It's $20. It gives all the room for the ventilation. It has a kickstand, which kind of stays out of the way. It's not the prettiest design in the world. I don't like this kind of like alien or angular look to it. And it's a little bit shiny and gamery, which is, again, not something I'm huge into. But when you're actually just playing it, it looks pretty nondescript, and I like that. In fact, now looking at these lines here, it's very similar to the original Steam Deck, because these are a little bit shiny. It's just kind of to the max at this point. And so we've got like, you know, 100% more of this shiny stuff. I'm not sure if you're going to like that. I'm not a huge fan, but I can see why, you know, they probably followed this model because that's the same design language of the Steam Deck itself. And so here's a look at them side by side. You can see that, yeah, the grip design is a little bit different. Again, I really like having the grips all the way up here, but you've got space for a skin if you wanted it. And because it's kind of the easier to move rubber, that means that it's not going to be like too tight of a fit. And so I think this would work good with like a full skin that would also cover these parts as well. Okay, let's move on and try out the next one. We've got a couple more to choose from. Okay, next up we have a grip from Satisfye. Now I'm familiar with this brand. I've seen them on like Bob Wolf videos over the years, but I've never actually worked with them before, but they did send this one out for review. Now this one is $50, and so it is more expensive than the ones we were just looking at, but it is cheaper than the KillSwitch. Let's look at what comes with it. So we have the grip itself. They call this the Stealth grip, and I think that's the worst name in the world. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. Next, we have the grip cover. So this has a cover like with the dbrand one, and you don't have to pay the additional $15. So this one just comes with it. It also has what they call rise pads, which are like thumb grip things that actually make it a little bit higher. We'll test those out here in a second. It has a tin case. I'm not really concerned with that. And then also a glass screen protector. So that's nice as well, because I think that's another $15 from dbrand. You can always get a lot cheaper ones on Amazon too. And then finally, it has silicone risers for the back buttons. I don't really know what that means just yet, but let's unbox it and actually test it out. Okay, the thing itself just comes in a big tin. This is your collector's tin case. Like, okay, let's just stop for a moment. Why would you do this? Like, what am I going to do with this big tin case if I'm going to use this with my grip? Like, if I'm going to take this out and put it on my Steam Deck and that's going to be my thing, what am I going to use this tin case for other than to store stuff in? I can put, you know, like medicine in or whatever, but it just seems like a waste of materials already. And so I get it. They probably wanted to have a more premium kind of experience, but I don't know. What am I going to do with this box that has a huge Satisfye logo on it? Anyway, I'm just being nitpicky here, but let's open it up and take a look. So we've got foam padding around it. Hopefully the foam insert can be taken out. And so here's the grip itself. You can see it's got the little cover on it already. So here's the grip, and then we've got some stuff underneath. Now, to be honest, I have opened this up before, but it was like 6 months ago, so I kind of forgot about the experience. So we're gonna like redo it again here. First thing is this screen protector. Either way, yeah, we've got like all the stuff that we would need here. Fingerprint resistant, precision fit, and all that. So, okay, so here are all the little accessories that comes with it. So we've got these riser pad things right here. These are 2 different heights. So the idea is that you'll put these on here and it'll give you more precision when you're playing first-person shooter games. This isn't really a review of that feature. I'll put them on here, but I've never been a fan of adding additional stuff to the sticks themselves. I think they're just fine on the Steam Deck, so I've never really had an issue there. And then finally, we have like these rubber pads on the grips themselves. So this would be if you want to make these buttons like easier to press down on, you would put these pads here. I don't know. Like this is one of those things where I kind of trust the engineering of Valve themselves and the Steam Deck, and I've never had a problem with them how they are right now. So I'm not sure how this would enhance by adding to them. We'll try it out just to be thorough, but I don't have a lot of high hopes. Anyway, let's test out the grip itself. So we've got that case cover thing. We'll test that out once we put it in. And then we have the grip. So man, the material on this is almost identical to the dbrand one. I mean, the design is very similar as well in the sense that it has that same cover. It even has like the same like 3 upper like piece design to it. Very similar, just with like a Satisfye edge to it. We'll talk about that in a second. But the grip itself feels a lot like the dbrand one. I really like the sandpaper texture, and so I like it on the dbrand. I like it here. It's got these little like glossy bits to it as well. They feel okay. And then the front here, or the back here really, is actually hard plastic. We got space for the micro SD card, and we've got space for all the buttonholes. Same thing here where they've etched out this entire place so that you can put on the dock right here without having to get an additional accessory. So from a design standpoint, I think it looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and install it and see how this goes. Okay, this one is definitely a tighter grip than the other ones, but I like that. You know, once you get it installed, it feels like it's part of the machine. This is really interesting. The grip itself is like bulbous. If you can see right here, it actually sticks out more than the regular Steam Deck grip. On the dbrand one, it's just kind of an extension of the grip that's already there. So you can see it just kind of sticks out a little bit from where it usually was. But here, let me flip these around so they're kind of the same angle. Make sure I'm lined up. But here you can see that, yes, this one is a little bit thinner, but on the Satisfye one, they've like added this extra bulk right here on the side. It's not a perfect camera angle to kind of show these off, but you can kind of get an idea that this one is a little bit bigger. Now, in terms of the grip, this is really interesting because it actually forces your hand to angle it down more towards the top than anywhere. And so you end up pushing it down this way as opposed to having it flush. Now, this is kind of weird because when you're playing a Steam Deck, you angle it towards you like this. Like you angle it this way so that way, you know, you can see into it very well. You don't want to angle it away. But the grip itself kind of encourages you to hold it that way instead. Like you put it down, you can see it's actually angling down this way as opposed to up. And so it just has a natural curve away from you when you want to be holding it like this. So I feel like I'm working against it to pull it this way. And so, yeah, I'm not sure this extra angle right here is enhancing it. If anything, yeah, it makes it more bulbous and it definitely feels different than the KillSwitch one, but I would not say this is an improved experience. And I think that maybe part of this is just that I'm so used to the dbrand one, and so I have a little bit of a bias here, but I see myself being able to get used to this one as well. I'm not a big fan of the fact that it has this Satisfye right on here. That's has to do with this brand. They do a lot of their own branding, and so they're very proud of themselves and their names and stuff. Like this whole stealth grip thing here on the back, which just, oh, that's cringy. And then also we have the Satisfye thing here. I'm not a big fan of like branding, and so I don't like this part. If you don't mind it, whatever. You know, it's the same. Like when you're actually playing it, you're going to cover up the Satisfye thing with your hand and you're not going to see the back. And so very minor nitpick, but I'm not a fan of seeing other people's branding on my device. I like that it covers all the aspects, so everything is well protected. It's pretty easy to be able to get the dock thing on here. I can get to the volume buttons easily. Same thing with the power button. We've got a big bumper right here on the bottom. And then also we've got the ability to get our micro SD card. So no complaints really when it comes to the design of this, other than it did take a little bit of time to get adapted to it. But I do feel like this is superior to the other ones that we were just testing. So it really is going to come down to if you want to use a different brand from dbrand and maybe save $10 and be able to get it on Amazon, this might be a good fit. But there are some concessions like the branding, and I don't feel like this is a perfect grip compared to the one that's on the dbrand, which just feels like the Valve one, but better. This one feels different, and it's something that I definitely could get used to. If you've got bigger hands, I've got medium-sized hands. If you've got big hands, this actually might be an improvement for you because it does make it feel a lot more grippy. I'm kind of mixed about this one. There are some things I like about it, especially this texture. I think this is very similar to the dbrand one, so no complaints there. But there are a couple things I'm not a huge fan about too. Now, one bonus is it does come with this little cover case thing. This is made out of the same kind of material as the dbrand one, so it's a hard plastic, almost metallic looking, but it is plastic. The issue with this one, again, this branding is just kind of crazy. And then all these diamond patterns, I'm not a huge fan of this, just because it seems a little bit ornate, if that makes any sense. Getting it on is pretty easy. It's a little bit bulbous feeling. This definitely has more bulk than the KillSwitch one. Let's actually compare them against each other. But yeah, like why do they have Satisfye right here on the front? This is a Steam Deck. It's not a Satisfye deck. That's the way I feel about it. Anyway, and one thing of note, if you've got an LCD or an OLED model, all this will be the same. Like this stuff was made for the LCD model, but because the shells are the same, there's really no difference here. Either way, as you can see, this one is bulkier. Like it stands up more. And, you know, it has an angle, it's a little bit off to it. This one is not at an angle and is also lower down. It doesn't take up as much space. And I also like the simplicity of this design. I'm not really sure why we need these bumps right here. I guess it's to protect the screen or whatever. But either way, I think it's a lot simpler. And I like the fact that it doesn't say like Satisfye or dbrand all over it. Either way, yeah, I think that between the two, I do prefer the dbrand one. It's a lot smaller and then also a lot thinner, but it is more expensive. And obviously to get this is an additional $15. So we're talking $75 versus $50. That is a 50% price difference between the two. But if I had to just choose one, like to be above them all between these two, I still would prefer the dbrand one. All right, so let's disassemble and then move on to the last one that we have to compare with. And this one's pretty tough to get off. Like this grip thing itself, like the cover case, this is hard to get off. And then I'm just going to assume this is going to be about as hard as the KillSwitch one is. Yeah, it's not too bad because the tops are all rubberized. And so, yeah, it pops right out after you kind of get it around it. So, yeah, no problem there getting it off other than that cover part, which is just kind of crazy. Okay, now let's try out all the accessories that come with the Stealth Grip. So I think we got to put these rubber things on first, and then those will latch on with the like risers. And so let's do this first. Okay, and then we have these two different risers. One is higher than the other. I'm going to assume that people are going to put this on the right analog stick, the higher one. So let's do that because that's supposed to, you know, help you with like first-person shooter games or whatever. The grips themselves, like these elevated things, won't actually go on the Steam Deck one without these rubber things. So it is a necessary component, but it also is like a really tight fit. I understand why. They probably want to make it feel natural, but this is ridiculous. Like I don't need additional height on my sticks. I know that, you know, like competitive shooter guys, like they want this kind of stuff. I'm not into this. Like I'm going to put them at an angle so it like matches with the angle of my thumbs. I could see myself getting used to this over time, but I just don't feel like I have a need for this. They're definitely grippier than the ones that come with the Steam Deck itself, but I don't like this right one in particular. It's way too elevated. I feel like it makes more distance between the face buttons and the sticks themselves. And so I don't see myself ever using something like this. But if you're the kind of person who's into this, like you have an Xbox controller, you put them on there, this is a similar experience. I just don't do that on my Xbox or PlayStation or anything. So these back button things, I'll tell you, it's the same kind of thing where I'm used to the manufacturer's design, and so I'm not really sure that any of these are going to enhance the experience for me. And actually within the circle, they have like a label for each of them. So they do have them labeled. So if you are looking to actually install these, it does have proper placement for them. I'm just going to put them on one side and then not put them on the other side so that we can compare between the two. Okay, all right, so first impressions is, yeah, it does add some grip to them, but I don't need the grip. Like, I like that these Steam Deck buttons on the back are kind of hard to get to and kind of hard to press because you're not going to press them accidentally. When you add a grip like this, it almost turns into the ROG Ally where you're going to hit them on accident. Like you're playing a game and you just squeeze because you're reacting or whatever. You're going to then press that. And if these are mapped to anything, that may not be something you want. I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to this stuff, so I'm not like saying that these are terrible or whatever. It's a good effort on Satisfye's part to try to enhance the experience. And I think that for some people, it's going to be a great match. It's just that for me, I would rather use the stock experience. Okay, last one is this one from a brand called Mepatem. It's basically a generic brand. It's one of those that you can find on Amazon with the crazy names. This thing is $13. I actually bought 2 of these because someone recommended it to me and I picked it up because it was just kind of a trivial amount of money. And then I forgot about it and then someone else recommended it. And so I bought a second one. And so I'm looking at all my stuff. I'm like, how do I have 2 of these? And I had to kind of figure that out for my Amazon purchases. So this is definitely an impulse buy territory at $13, but it's pretty interesting. So let's take this one apart. I've already unboxed the other one and tested it out, but this is obviously a different one. So here's the thing, on paper, this thing almost looks like it can beat the KillSwitch, but for $13. It has a case to it, like a covering, as well as the grip. It also has a kickstand, and it's $13. Like, it's crazy. Like, to have all 3 of those things that usually will cost you $75, but for a fraction of the price. It does come with a little extender right here if you want to use that with a dock, so that's always handy. I love to have these little accessories. So we've got that there, that's a bonus. And then we've got the grip itself, and then the cover case. We'll do the cover case here in a second. So the grip actually feels pretty good. Like, it's cheap. It's definitely cheap. It is $13, but they've got it all bumped right here. So it's got a nice texture to it. It feels a little bit like an Xbox controller. It's not super grippy like the one from dbrand as well as Satisfye, but I would put it right below those. It's definitely better than the matte finish ones. So I actually like the feel of this. It also has that kind of glossy texture, and you can see it's like cheap plastic. Like, it's already a little bit different in terms of colorization and texture. It still feels good, man. Like, I'm surprised at how much I actually like this. The inside right here looks like it's hard plastic, but it's not. It's actually rubber. And then this is hard plastic, and it's just the kickstand. Oh, this is surprisingly hard to get off. There we go. So it's got a little clip right here, and then you can just put it on. You can push it in. It stays pretty well put, and then you can kind of open it up. Got a little bit of branding here from Mepatem or whatever. We've got extra ventilation, which is not really necessary, but kind of interesting. And then we do have space for the micro SD card slot and a lanyard if you wanted to do that. And then up top, we've got the 2 bumpers, power button, and LED light. And then also you can see this is why it needs the extender, because it's not flush right here. So it wouldn't work with the official Valve dock unless you had the extender. But otherwise, for $13, this is kind of crazy. Like, I feel like the materials alone should cost something pretty close to that. So how are they even making money? You do have the lip there. It's not terrible. I can definitely feel it. I don't know. I'm just more apt to forgive it for $13 at this point. The grips themselves feel a lot better. And so that's probably one of the parts to it, is that I actually prefer the feel of this plastic over just the standard Steam Deck plastic. And I also think it's better than those other grips too. So I don't know, this thing is kind of like a low-key winner just at the price point and just kind of holding it. So the grip itself, like in using it, feels pretty good. Like, I would spend $13 on this and feel like, yeah, I've improved my Steam Deck, not only in terms of protection, but just the kind of grip of it as well. So let's try out the kickstand, and this one feels like it's about the same angle as the Spigen one, so not quite there in terms of the Satisfye one. It feels okay. Again, this is more like tabletop oriented as opposed to pushing it down a little bit more to make it feel, I don't know, like a nice grip to have while you're playing. So I don't think I would see myself playing it like this, like I would with like the dbrand one or even the Satisfye one, but it's still pretty good, and it'll be perfect for tabletop gaming. There is no rubber padding right here, which means that you might scratch up your table or something. So something to think about is that you don't have that rubber padding, which I always like to have. Regardless, I can see why people recommended this to me, because at $13, it feels like it's punching way above its weight class. Let's try out the cover next. So this one is not hard plastic like the other ones where it's like military grade feeling. Like you can see, it's kind of rubberized here at the top. And I don't know, I don't feel like I need like super high grade covering for it. I just need enough that I don't like damage the screen. So let's try putting this on. It's actually easier to put on than either of the other ones, like the Satisfye and the dbrand ones. And honestly, I got like no complaints when it comes to this cover either. The sticks themselves stick out just as much as they need to, and then everything else is just kind of at an angle. It does have the Mepatem branding on it, but it's not like front and center like the Satisfye one. Also, these designs aren't super ornate. And so, yeah, I kind of like this. Like, I'm liking this more than I thought I would. Even when I tested this like 6 months ago, I thought, that's pretty decent. But now that I've tested all the other ones in the same sit down, yeah, it's kind of winning for me. It doesn't have the gaudiness of the Satisfye one. It's sleek and easy. It's $13 compared to $75 for the same setup with dbrand. The only thing that really kind of holds me back from using this one as my primary is the lip feeling. Yeah, that's the only complaint here. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the dbrand one off of my OLED and put it on this one and see if I could live with it. I think the skins aren't going to line up, so it's not going to be perfect. But that kind of shows how much I like this one, to the point where I am considering to use this as my primary. So let's test that out next. And actually, while we're here, let's take a look at the dbrand. So this one has a soft interior right here, and it is rubberized and then hard plastic in the center. So similar to those other ones, but as you can see, it just, I don't know, it's a little bit elevated. Like this is like a soft material right here. I feel like I'm snuggling my Steam Deck when I put it on. Let's try out the $13 one in comparison here with the dbrand skin on it. It's definitely a lot more snug because of the skin, I think. So I am having to kind of coax it on. It does take a little bit extra work, but it is doable. Gosh, this is so close to being as good as the dbrand one. I wish that the grip came up right here. They maybe didn't do that because they don't want to get like, I don't know, some sort of trademark against them or whatever. But holy moly, like this is actually almost good enough to use. It does annoy me, like the kickstand seems to come out on its own every once in a while, so I'm not really sure about that part, but gosh. It's pretty close. I still think I prefer the dbrand one. I'm not going to leave this on or anything. I don't know. You know, dbrand sells like full skins that will cover this part as well. So you could use a full skin right here, and I think it would turn out okay. It's just not quite the same feeling. It's a little bit cheaper, but not the end of the world. Like, it's pretty good. The way I see it, this improves the Steam Deck experience, which I think is very important. And the fact that it does it for $13 versus $75 is pretty incredible. And so I would say between these two grips, the dbrand one and then this one from, what is it called? Mepatem. If you're only going to spend $13, you don't want to spend a ton of money, then this is definitely worth it. I also think that the dbrand one, even if you are going to spend upwards of $75 for it, is still well worth it. You're going to be taken care of at both angles. It's really a matter of budget, and then also whether or not you're willing to live with some of these shortcomings and also save, you know, the $60. Okay, so that's a wrap when it comes to all the grips, and I have to be honest, I like the dbrand one the most, but that $13 one is still pretty great. The Satisfye one I can see as being a good alternative, but it's just not quite there. And if I'm going to be spending almost as much money as the dbrand one, I will probably just use the dbrand one. So it's pretty close, but no cigar. And so really we're looking at two different price points. We have the ultra cheap model, which I think is still a pretty good option, and then we have the dbrand KillSwitch, and unfortunately I didn't find anything that dethroned it. Now let's move over and start talking about cases. This is going to be the last part of the video. Let's start with the cases that I've been using for a long time, just to kind of go over a review of them and some of my favorites. The first is this one from tomtoc. This is their original Steam Deck case. This is the gray model. And so this one is pretty easy to use. It just, you know, throw your Steam Deck in here. It's got a little pad on the top. And then it also has a part right here. You can put some accessories in here. Not much, really just like SD cards. And then you can close it up. And that's really it. And so I've always liked this one because it's a lot thinner than the one that comes from Valve. And so I find this one to be a lot more portable. So when I'm going on travel and I need a case, I use this one for a long time. The other thing I like about it is it does work with the KillSwitch grip. You can actually slide it right in here. It's a little bit tight, but it does close up. And so that is awesome, and I've definitely used this one a lot. You can actually see the gray is a little bit brown because it's been used so much. But overall, yeah, this is a good alternative. And this was my favorite until I got another one from tomtoc. Let's talk about that one. So this one is now the one that I primarily use. This is also from tomtoc. This is their upgraded version. It has a different texture to it. Instead of being cloth like the other one, this one is like a plastic with a little bit of texture to it. I think it looks really nice, and it's very like Steam Deck fitting in terms of like the design as well. This one is all black. Very similar. The only thing about it is that it's a little bit tighter, and so I can't pull up this flap up here and actually get this on here to protect it, it's just like too much. And so you have to push this down and then kind of push it into it. But you've got all these bumpers to protect it, so I'm not really concerned about that. And same thing here, it's got a little pouch. This is all like soft like cloth instead of the more regular cloth on the other one. Anyway, this is the one that I use. Zips up same way, very similar size, but just has like a waterproof kind of texture to it here on the front. And so I don't know, this one feels a little bit more protected. It doesn't get dirtied like the cloth one does. And so this is my primary case that I use from tomtoc. And these are both the same price at $30, and I think that's well worth it. And also, just from a logical perspective, it does make sense to use the dbrand like travel kit as well, because this thing's only $15, so it's half the price of the tomtoc one, and it is also fairly flush. And so it kind of does both things at once. But I don't know, like I prefer to have the tomtoc case on it. It just looks a little bit nicer, and I don't mind spending that additional $15 compared to the travel kit one. So it's all going to be personal preference and taste, and it's awesome that we have a lot of options. And speaking of options, here's another one. So this one I use all the time as well. This is from a company called Waterfield. It's $85, so this is not cheap. But it's a magnetic case. You can open this up by kind of pulling it open. You've got space here for like, I use a like microfiber cloth in here, but you can put like the kickstand from the KillSwitch in here. And you've also got another case right here, so you could throw in like SD cards or whatever. So you've got a little bit extra space, but the cool thing about this is how easy it is to get in and out. So you just kind of put it in here, boop, and then it just kind of goes together. And so this is neat in the sense that it protects it and has a kind of luxurious look to it. It is expensive, $85. The thing is more expensive than the dbrand KillSwitch, but all the same, it feels pretty good. It's got space for the dbrand one as well, so you can use it with a grip. It's still going to fit in here just fine. And I also tend to use this with other handhelds because it's not form-fitting to the Steam Deck design itself. I can use this with other handheld PCs. My ROG Ally works just fine with it as well. And so that's one of my favorite things about it, is that it's a bit universal. And then also it's just really easy to get your stuff in and out. And so I do find myself putting this one in my backpack pretty often because I can just have it here. And then all I have to do is just reach in my backpack, open it up, and then pull out the Switch or the Steam Deck. And so it's pretty awesome in that regard. But given the fact that it's $85, I can totally understand why this is a little bit overkill as well. And speaking of overkill, we've got the last one. This is from Spigen. This was also sent over for review. This thing is called the Rugged Armor Pro, and this is a full-on case, and it is massive. It's actually bigger than the one from Valve. Now, this one's got a couple extra nice features to it. So, for example, you've got a ton of space up here up top. So you've got all this. It even has a little strap, so you could connect a strap to it. You've got space for your charger in here, as well as some accessories, maybe even like a controller, like a flatter controller. You could put that on here, no problem. Anyway, the thing about this one is it actually will lock into place. And so you can put your Steam Deck in here, even something with a grip, and then it'll just kind of lock it in here, and then you can kind of close it up. And it's got a ton of padding. Like, it's got rubber padding on the edges here. You can see these little orange things. And then also the sides here have like additional rubber bumpers. And so this thing feels well protected. Like, I don't think anything's going to happen to the Steam Deck while it's in here. I'm just not really sure you need this much protection for this thing, especially if you got a grip on it. Underneath, it has another compartment, so this thing is just full of storage. So you could put something else in here. I think this is actually space for the Steam Deck, like official brick, as well as the cable right here. So you've got space for all that stuff right here, in addition to all this stuff up top. So you could throw some old laundry in here, you know, maybe like a couple changes of clothes, and this thing will kind of take care of it. I'm just not sure you would need something this big, but if you are looking for like an all-in-one, I know a lot of people like to do that with like their Switch, for example. You could do something very similar. You've got your place for the strap right here. You've got nice metal zippers as well. And honestly, for $40, this is a lot of case. Like, you get a lot of features here, especially compared to the $30 ones from tomtoc. Personally, I like things to be just as small and compact as possible, and this does feel a little bit like overkill for me. But if you are looking for a big case that's not going to be the one from Valve, but something a little bit more elevated and really going to make sure that your device is protected, this will be pretty good. Okay, I think we made it. Like, we made it all the way through this video without messing up too bad. I've got a bunch of stuff here thrown on the floor at this point, but this was a lot of fun. Like, this was actually a lot less work than it was for my typical videos, but I think we still got the point across. When I actually do the editing and cut this down, I'm not sure how long this will be. My guess is like 30 something minutes, and I think that's a good amount of time. I remember the last time when I sat down and I tested a bunch of these out, it took forever. I probably did an hour's worth of footage at that point, and I still had more things to review. And so this actually makes things a lot faster for me and for you. And so I'm pretty excited with the setup. We definitely need to make this a lot prettier looking. I want to get stuff on the wall here. I may try different angles as well. I actually have a standing desk behind me that I'm going to use for like standing shots as well. So I got a lot of things in the works, and this was just kind of an experiment, but I thought this was a great way to try it out, specifically because I had so many different things to test, and I appreciate you watching and kind of coming along for the ride. Let me know in the comments down below. Number one, about like these Steam Deck grips themselves, which ones are your favorite? And then also, like, what do you think of this format? What should I change? What are the things you liked and disliked? And we'll kind of move from there. I'm not expecting this to be like a Emmy award winning like production or anything, but this was a lot of fun, and I like the fact that I tried a 2-camera setup without like burning the house down. And so let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and we will see you next time. Happy gaming.